We're gonna kick ass and take names and
I don't know whose ass we're kicking, but we're kicking somebody's ass, and they better watch the fuck out.
yeah, you tell them.
Baka Talk.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Baka Talk, the show where we talk about anime-related things. I'm Rob.
And I'm Sam.
And today, our topic of discussion is plastic memories.
Yes, true. A show where you cry forever and fly on invisible wings.
Mm-hmm. Again and again.
Fuck you.
I know. I want to go over some characters. I want to talk a little bit about the world itself and how things work in it. And of course, or don't work. Exactly. And pretty much overall thoughts and whatnot, because there's a lot to think about.
Indeed.
This world that Plastic Memories takes place in is kind of fucked up.
It's poorly thought out. I'm going to say the world building in this show is almost non-existent because that's not the focus of this show. It's mostly a vehicle for character analysis.
Yes.
A lot of the elements are poorly thought out, in my opinion, and that's the part of this show that I am most critical of, is the setting and its coherence.
Right.
It's a long-standing tradition in sci-fi to deal with real issues and concepts in a fantastical way, like dealing with racism with aliens or mutants.
Right.
In this case, Plastic Memories is about death, and it deals with it through the metaphor of androids or Giftia being shut down.
Right.
And it accomplishes that.
Yeah. Giftia's androids with a synthetic soul. They have a lifespan of roughly 9 years, and before Giftia is issued, the owner must sign an agreement in advance and must be present during the retrieval process. I mean, this is all due to some kind of privacy policy. It's kind of weird to think about that that's a thing. I mean,
yeah.
They have a lifespan not even as long as like a pet.
A dog.
That's someone would. A dog, yes.
Exactly.
Right.
If you're okay with it, I'd like to kind of go into my questions and criticisms about this setting.
Sure, Leia. Let's switch it up and do that first this time.
First of all, what is the practical purpose of Giftia? Why would you make androids with emotions, personality quirks, flaws? Why do people buy them for presumably a very large amount of money if they only live 9 years, which is less than your average dog will live?
I thought about that too, and it's extremely messed up, and I don't think there is an excuse that can actually compete with that question as far as to make it sound right. However, what I do understand is that it's weird because, I mean, you would assume that people need jobs in general.
Right.
Right? However,
Yes.
in this world, it makes it almost seem like there aren't enough people with all the positions that there are, with the different kinds of jobs there are. If the kid's been orphaned, you can give it to Giftia because a Giftia can have that child and take care of it. But the Giftia is only going to live for 9 years, so what's going to happen to the child after the fact? You know what? So it's
exactly
a weird double-edged sword thing where it's like, oh, this is a great idea, but it doesn't work to the capacity where they need it to work to make it make sense.
And here's my other question is we see Giftia in roles like mechanic, and which leads to another question that I'll get to in a second. Those are labor, not that those don't involve having emotions or personalities. If the technology for androids exists, why do we only see Giftia? Why don't we see labor androids that just exist to work that would be more practical in those roles and would live for longer than 9 years because there's no chance of them going berserk with their complex minds?
I would imagine that it has something to do with, say, this now, I don't know if this is true. This is just a theory of this show's universe, which already is kind of weird. I'm going to assume that there were just basic androids before Giftias. You would imagine that there would have to be, right?
Yes.
Before they can actually come up with a synthetic soul, quote unquote, for that to work out. There had to have been just labor androids in general, just machines that were people that were given tasks and they just did whatever they were programmed to do. That was their job. Right. I imagine that this is just one of those things that is relatively new and a step into the future. And it's just kind of like, this is what this is now. Like, we're actually making them people. and this is more expensive, and it's another way to make money. And I almost want to say, who wants an android when you can have a Giftia? Not saying that would be the case for every situation, and maybe it's not. Maybe there are just androids out there that just do jobs that just work. But maybe someone actually does want the person connection because maybe they don't want to talk to a blank slate. Maybe they do want to actually be sociable with something else. And it's really weird to think about that you would even want that in that kind of setting, or
especially if they're going to die after 9 years.
Right.
And I know they use other terminology, but let's be honest, they're dying.
Their memories are gone, essentially. Their mind gets ripped apart.
You can talk about, actual decay of organic flesh, but the tragic part of dying is the loss of a person, which is exactly what happens with these Giftia. So in human terms, it is effectively death.
It is death. It is absolutely death. And death in more than one sense, because yes, it's the mind going and it's done. But they have referred to as the Giftias, like David mentioned briefly, that their bodies were disposed of sometimes.
Yes.
Sometimes they'd be repurposed. They'd be given a new soul.
No disassemble.
Right. But
sorry.
Yeah, but so there were times where they were completely rid of. And that's kind of like isn't that a waste of resources? Like, why wouldn't you actually always just put a new soul in a Giftia body? Like, why wouldn't you always do that? So it's strange how the fact that at one point in time, some were just disposed of.
Maybe the technology didn't exist yet to upload a new OS.
Right.
Into them. Or maybe it's just that the fact that each unique body is owned by a certain person, and that person may not want that body to belong to another because they may associate it too strongly with the person that they lost.
Like it could have been a special request.
Yes,
it's like, I want this gone because of the memories that I have with it now.
Or I don't know what kind of contract is involved in buying a Giftia. It may be that they actually have the right to refuse the body to be recycled.
Right. Okay. So, was there anything else that you wanted to mention about this, the Giftias in general, or this world, like how something makes sense or something doesn't make sense?
There is actually so much I could say. I mean, do you mind if I just throw a hurricane of questions at you?
Sure.
All right. Well, leading in from the fact that they may refuse a particular likeness to be reused, each Giftia does have its own likeness. The entire aim of the Giftia line is for them clearly to be people, essentially, which I feel is at odds with the assumption that society will treat them as things when they are clearly designed to be like people. But I guess I understand it. I mean, even in actual human history, humans have treated real other humans as something less than human. So I suppose it's just human nature,
right,
to discriminate like that, even when someone is clearly a person. Sadly,
I was actually surprised that this show didn't touch that much upon.
That's true.
Like a race issue. I was actually expecting it to be more people against Giftias in general. The fact that they were, I'm surprised no one came out and said like they're fake people. You know what I mean? Like, I'm surprised that there wasn't that kind of conflict. There was a little bit with like military stuff,
right? With the military,
with the feelings of others involving Giftia and things like
that. Not
even
just them, but even the other departments of terminal services.
Right. We found out that this one that was based around was different. Weird. It was actually kind of like an outcast within those departments. They did things in a more emotional, like caring way,
sensitive way. Yeah.
Yes.
And that is good. I'm not so surprised by it because this anime is very hyper focused. Sometimes, in my opinion, to its detriment, but it knows what it wants to talk about and it focuses on that.
Yes.
So I can applaud that at least. It knows what it's about and it doesn't get distracted.
Right. And I'm sure there are those topics in this universe in general, but like you said, that's not what the show is about.
Besides the point, the real question for me is, why does terminal services exist? If Giftia always deteriorate at around the same time, almost down to the same hour, and that flaw is so well known, they should have been built with a kill switch that terminates them automatically rather than wasting resources catching them and risk letting them go berserk if terminal services fails. I can't think of any justification for that. At least none is provided where I feel like it's kind of a big issue.
I'm wondering if it doesn't, once again, it doesn't make sense. It is extremely careless to even have this as an option. But like, what if that wasn't even thought about? I mean, that's a stupid thing to say, but what if like that wasn't designed for it, or possibly it was purposely not designed to have a kill switch. Like they weren't designed to have a kill switch, so there could be terminal services, and that's more jobs. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know why that is. Like, are they actually in cahoots with each other? Like, do the people that make the Giftia, are they associated with terminal services? That's what I'm wondering. Because then you have people making Giftia, sending them out to those who pay whatever money there is for them, and then you get your side company to go and collect the Giftia afterwards for that. So it's just, I'm sure there's some kind of charge for it, just like because forms are signed, etc. I feel like it's connected to each other.
That's possible. If that's the case, I personally feel like that should have been dealt with at least in passing in the anime. I feel like a little too much world building was sacrificed for the sake of the anime's hyper focus on character analysis.
Right. I feel the same way. I assume that's it. Obviously, I don't know because they never say, and they don't say because it's so hyper focused on the emotion and the message of death and what that means.
So those are basically my feelings on the setting, is that, you know, it's interesting enough, but I feel like there really isn't enough explanation of the setting.
So let me ask you this now.
Yes.
I want to say, well, let's say that you are in this broken universe, right?
Oh, God forbid.
You know, so now you are in this broken world. I don't know if things actually make sense for you and whatnot, but Giftias are a thing. They have the same lifespan. They do their same jobs and whatnot. Do you think you could actually emotionally handle a job that they have in terminal services? Like even if you weren't in the sentimental division of terminal services, like you just had to go into these families and essentially tear them apart because it's your job to collect this Giftia. Do you think you could do that? And like feel okay?
Could I live as a professional angel of death? Because that's basically what they are.
Yep.
Could I? If I had to, probably. I could probably.
I imagine you'd get desensitized.
Yeah, I could detach myself enough, or even justify it to myself, like I'm giving these people the best possible outcome, especially in the way that Department Number 1 does it, where they kind of help people cope. Would it eventually get to me? Probably. Especially having to work with Giftia, if I worked there long enough to have my friends eventually be retrieved, as they call it.
Because you're going to be assigned with another Giftia, right? You're collecting Giftia, essentially. And I mean, if you work with someone for a while, you're bound to like become friends with them at the very least. Probably.
Yeah, you get attached to them.
You get to know them.
Even if you're not close friends, having just someone you know die feels weird.
Right. It's just, and you don't even have to be with like or around that person for that long for it to affect you sometimes.
Yeah.
And the fact that this Giftia was made to be in terminal services and you were partnered with him on day one. Say he's already worked there for 5 years. You work there for another 4 years. Hey, he's got to go because his time's up. Like that's weird.
Are Giftia made to be in terminal services?
I think so.
Are they made specifically for that purpose, or are they just purchased by terminal services?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not sure.
No, I feel like Isla is almost herself not well suited to terminal services.
Right. She may have just been purchased, and that might have just been her job. Like that she was assigned to.
Whenever we start talking about her, I'll get into it more, but I almost feel like she's a little bit of a defect, a little different than other Giftia that we see during the series.
Yeah, I can
a little more human almost.
Right. Yeah, I can see that. Or does it just seem that way because that's the one we got to know the most?
I wouldn't say so, because she seems to be the least at peace with the with her own imminent demise. Like,
right.
And she is the one out of all the different partnered Giftia who was especially concerned for well, she's the one who established the way that Department Number 1 operates.
Right. So, real quick, because I do want to start talking about Tsukasa and Isla really soon, but
yes.
I want to also mention another Giftia related thing in general.
Yes.
So now that you answered the question about working within terminal service and whatnot, would you be afraid of meeting people in general or having Giftia like in your life or families? Because, you know, they live for a certain amount of time, and if they're not collected, they go berserk. But there's also that like fear of actually emotionally connecting with someone, even on a stronger level and stuff. I personally would be a little afraid because, God forbid, if I got to know someone who I didn't even know was a Giftia right away, that they are one, and then it's like, oh, well, shit. Like, I actually have feelings for you. I don't know how to deal with this now.
Yeah, I think I would eventually start detaching myself from Giftia. If I knew someone that someone were human, I might still be able to talk to them. But Giftia, I think I might, just as a defense mechanism,
right?
Whether I think it's right or not, personally, just on a subconscious level, I think my own psyche, for its own sake, would possibly keep me from viewing Giftia as anything but machines.
Right, and that's really weird to say because they're made to be with their own personalities and to be people, essentially.
Yes, they are people, and
it's wild to think that, because it's like now when you meet someone new, you're gonna have to ask that silly question. It's like, are you Giftia? Like, is there a way to actually know without asking? I don't know.
Probably not. You can't tell them apart from normal humans.
Not in the show anyway. It doesn't. You don't see any actual visible difference. There's not really.
Well, plus they say it at the beginning of the show. They say you can't tell them apart.
Oh, that's right. They do say that.
They tell Tsukasa that.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. I'd be a little concerned because I'm sure you'll have that person where it's like maybe you have a relationship with, and then, you know, after the relationship starts at some point, they'd be like, oh, by the way, I'm a Giftia. It's like, well, why'd you go and do that to me? Why do I have feelings now? This isn't going to last.
I would definitely have to ask someone at the beginning if they are a Giftia.
Yeah. It's just that's a real awkward thing to do. It's extremely awkward and possibly not possibly, but in a sense insensitive, but it's not even your fault because you're afraid.
I mean, that's just how I would become, whether I wanted to or not. Like I said, I mean,
yeah,
I think I don't think it's a matter of what you would decide. I think at a certain point, your psyche just changes you to protect itself. And I think I would reach a certain point where I wouldn't be allowed to become attached to Giftia.
Right. And that also kind of leads into another question, but I'm going to try to hold off and hopefully remember to ask you towards the end, because other things need to be discussed before I get to that point.
Then let's go to those other things.
Yeah. So I think, oh man, I think we should talk about some character stuff.
All right. I'm ready. My body is ready.
Let's talk a little bit about Isla.
Oh, must we? All right.
Sure.
I guess my heart can take it.
I don't know if mine can, but it'll do.
Let's talk about Isla. She dies at the end, and that is something that is important to her.
Uh-huh. It is.
Isla is probably, in my opinion, the only Giftia who is a fully fleshed out character, even amongst the other ones, or actually especially amongst the other ones working in terminal services.
I would agree with that.
I feel personally that she's maybe a little more human than they are, just because she's more afraid of her death as a human would be. She's terrified.
Yeah. I mean, she's terrified. At the beginning of the show, only a couple episodes in, it's revealed that she has 2,000 hours left, which is roughly 83 days.
Yeah.
That's terrifying. That is scary shit. Like, you're counting down your death, and you know you have to go. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts.
Counting down to your death. That's awful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's no wonder she was crying in the elevator the first time she was introduced.
Exactly. I don't even feel like she has a choice to know whether it's like the option of whether or not she wants to know when her time is up. I feel like no matter what, she's going to know how much time she has left.
Yeah, in the profession that she's in, it's important for her to know how much time a Giftia has left, and by extension herself.
Right. They don't have the choice. It feels like they all do. I think they all have a ticking clock because the majority have that look of understanding when they're about to be collected. It's rough.
And most of them seem to be at peace with it.
Yeah.
Which Isla's not really for most of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Isla's not as at peace with it. She seems to have maybe, I don't know if it's more or less understanding of death and the effect it has on herself and other people, because that's another thing that seems to bother her, is the effect it would have on others.
Right.
Which in my opinion is why she advocated that policy of doing it smoothly and making sure that people are at peace with it.
Right. Yeah. It's really cool that she was the one that pretty much started that whole way of doing it.
Yeah.
And at the same time, she's struggling with herself, with, knowing that her time is pretty much up. She has her ways of dealing with it herself. She essentially, kind of like what you were saying, is like working in the whole, like how you have to like kind of disconnect yourself from the experiences.
Yeah.
And whatnot.
She acts like a machine.
She disconnects herself and she's like, I'm just a machine. This is my thing.
That's her way of running away, I feel like.
Oh, absolutely.
She runs away. She runs away from her emotions as a person by telling herself, okay, I'm just a machine. After all, a machine doesn't care if it's deleted.
Right.
The most obvious indicator of when she's running away from something in the anime is when she uses the word error.
Right. I mean, it was also used for comedic effect, but definitely.
It was, but even in comedic situations, she was usually running away from a feeling.
Yes, absolutely. Yep, she definitely was.
It's not healthy. No, it's an unhealthy coping mechanism.
Yeah, she did that for the majority of her time that we got to see her, which is pretty sad.
Oh, but only Tsukasa did manage to sort of fight his way past it and get her to just be a person.
He did,
which is good.
Yes. Now about Tsukasa.
Yeah.
How do you feel about him and his decisions and what he did?
All right, I'm gonna be a little honest.
Sure.
He unfortunately followed the anime cliche of the protagonist being a little bit of a blank slate, in my opinion, for the audience to insert themselves.
Okay.
There was not as much to him as I wanted there to be, and I felt like some of his decisions were a little poorly reasoned. Like even his love of Isla in the first place was kind of irrational and was just there to propel the story because that was what the series needed.
Right.
I feel like of all the characters, he was not analyzed that well. That's just my opinion.
Okay. Now, I have a slight counter for that. However, I do agree with you for the most part. I feel like there could have been more to him, for sure. But as much as I want to say, yeah, it's kind of bullshit that like he feels this way almost immediately towards this other character who he barely knows. It's practically a love, no different from ReZero with Subaru and Amelia.
Yeah.
I mean, these shows are different.
Yeah, but it's I do still feel that reasoning love, especially in fiction like this, and especially by a teenage character, and he is like 18, I think, is a waste of time. Love is often treated in this sort of irrational occurrence.
Right. It's kind of like a Romeo Juliet thing where it's like, oh, I love you, but I don't know you. And it's like, let's spend the rest of our lives together and we'll die together. I don't know. Well, it's stupid.
Yeah. And no matter how contrived it is, there's no real arguing it against it because people really do fall in love just sort of randomly like that. And sometimes it works out.
I do believe that a character, as cliche as it is allowed to have those strong emotions maybe faster than you normally expect, because I mean, I'm for one an example of experiencing that myself.
As am I.
Yes, it's cliche and it's corny. However, that's not something that bothers me in this situation as much as some other stuff might, just because I felt that way.
It's true.
As silly as that may sound. I do think he could have been worked on with other things just a little bit.
I wish we learned a little more about his backstory personally.
He's just a guy that was sick during his exams, and he got this job because his father has hookups. Like, that's it. Like, that's all we know.
Yeah, I really could have stood to learn more about Tsukasa. And it is kind of highlighted by the fact that we've watched a couple of shows with stronger protagonists with more recognizable personality traits.
Yes.
So I'm pretty critical of him in the cast. And those are basically my feelings on Tsukasa.
I feel like he did stand out a little more towards the end of the show. They actually did show a little bit of a struggle with the with like he knows what he has to do. Obviously, he doesn't like it. He's seen what happens if you don't go through with it with the Giftias.
Yeah,
but he's still bringing up that thing where I'm watching that scene and I'm like, you stupid asshole. Why would you even? Why? How could you actually consider that, knowing what you've seen? How would that work? Well, it's just emotions talking.
Yeah, I think if it were me and I had fallen in love, I would also tell myself, yeah, I'll be with her to the very end.
Right. And that essentially answers the question that I was going to ask you later on, is if you think you could actually do what he did.
If I fell in love, yes. I am that irrational when I'm in love.
Right.
Personally.
I think most people are pretty irrational.
Even knowing what I would feel, I would still put myself through it.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty intense.
Yeah. Intense is definitely the word. And I think that is where Tsukasa shined, because I think, like I said, that's really that was the objective of the show. Tsukasa was really supposed to play his part when he was in the relationship with Ayla, and it was supposed to analyze how he felt about her imminent death.
Right.
So I also understand why they had to build up to that, but that's probably why he was a little weaker up until that moment, because
yes, every moment before then, you're just observing as him.
Yes. That's the only part where his character really comes into play.
Right. When he's just having like those special moments with Ayla. But when he's just kind of at work or standing by or watching or observing things or learning something, that's just our way of knowing what's happening in this universe, which kind of falls flat because we don't know what's actually happening in this universe.
Just coming back to I really wish that they had stronger world building.
I mean, we could also go back to Tsukasa and Ayla at some point, but I do want to briefly talk about some of the other characters in this show.
Yeah, Michiru, Kazuki, Eru, Yasutaka. Well, not much to say about Yasutaka.
Yeah, Zach and Constance. Not much to say
about either of them either. Not much to say about Constance or even Zach, in my opinion. I feel like both of them are sort of just counterparts to their respective partners.
Yes. I want to talk about Michiru for a second. She did have her moments and stuff, but she was put there to be the classic tsundere.
Yep, she was. She is a tsundere.
She overused the same sayings all the time just by re-saying amateur.
Yeah, this is why I've been saying amateurs, yeah.
Yeah, she just do that. Zach, I appreciate him being there just because he's the one that kind of made her like shut up.
Well, but
it was the same joke over and over and over again.
For most of the time, he actually was sort of exposing how she really felt because she was so repressed.
Which is, I guess, better. I guess it was better that he was there, even though he had nothing else to him.
His only relevance to the actual story was to expose to us what Michiru was really feeling.
Yep, that is absolutely true.
She didn't bother me that much. It's true that she was the classic tsundere, but most of the characters do fit a cliche or classic archetype. And I almost feel like that's the point. Like, they are on the surface just the cliche anime cast, but they each have some investment in the setting, which is a vehicle, like I said, of character analysis for them.
Right.
Like Eru, she was the classic sort of, Genki girl. She was always pretty cheerful.
Bubbly.
She was silly. Yeah, bubbling. But then she had her episode with Andy, aka Olivia. It was the time that the series dealt with the fact of someone looking exactly like their body being recycled. My issue with that one, it was a good storyline. My issue with that one was that she ended up being in a relationship with Andy's for, in my opinion, just the fact that she looked like Olivia, which is at odds with the fact that she was talking about her, how she must respect them as different people.
Yeah, I mean, initially, definitely yes. But then Eru does eventually say that I don't want to come to this festival next year. I want to do something else so I can actually make memories with Andy's and not Olivia. The initial interest is definitely because you look like the person that I knew.
I guess there's no helping the initial interest.
Right, that's there. It's rough.
It just is what it is. Sorry, I strayed away from Michiru.
No problem. I mean, there's not much to say in my opinion. She's a tsundere. She does have her backstory of whatnot. I think she's kind of crazy for getting involved with the terminal services only 3 years after what happened to her.
I think the reason that she got involved is because she doesn't want other people to experience what she experienced. She also wants to try and help it move smoothly.
Right. That's great. But if it was me, I mean, she must just be really strong then, because if it was me, I don't think I could jump into that only 3 years after it happened. That's not a long time.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think she makes herself be strong because she was talking to Tsukasa about how, how would you feel if some airheaded kid showed up to take away the person who you feel like is family?
Yes.
And so I think she sort of made herself grow up, tries to make herself seem grown up at least, because she tries really hard to be professional. And I think that's part of where all that repression comes from, and the resultant tsundere status. I think that her attempts actually showcase her immaturity.
Yeah.
Because from all that we know about Zach, she's a completely different person when she's not putting on the professional persona.
Right.
Which is when she's all severe. And let's not forget, she learned that attitude from Kazuki, who is really an aggressive person.
Kazuki is a mess.
Until the last few episodes of the series, I had nothing nice to say about Kazuki, because she's an abusive, incompetent drunkard whose insistence on enforcing Isla's policy without a real good plan for conserving resources are putting her own supervisor's career in jeopardy. I feel like she makes misguided decisions that hurts the people around her, and then acts like she's being protective.
She absolutely does. And the thing is that the show, I feel like, makes it seem like she knows what she's doing.
She has no fucking idea what she's doing. The only redeeming factor.
Idea what she's doing. No idea.
The only redeeming factor about Kazuki is that deep down she means well, and that is something that I saw in the last few episodes, which is when I revised my synopsis of her.
Right.
Because she at least does have that redeeming quality. She gives a shit about Isla. She cares deeply about Isla. She's just bad at expressing that care for other people. I think she's probably skilled at the job of retrieval just through experience and through balls. But as a field director, she's a disaster. And as a friend, she's got real problems. And she may have been more of an asset 3 years ago, but she lost more than a leg.
She's definitely a mess. I agree with that, what you said, 100%. She's more destructive than she is in any other way through the majority of the show. I'm wondering if that was intentional, or if they're just trying to make this badass yet funny character at times with the drunkenness. And I feel like that's what that is, and that they only kind of gave her some kind of emotion towards the end because, hey, it's an emotional show and that's what we want you to feel.
I do feel like those traits were played for laughs when it's really not funny. Like, she made Michiru lose how many pounds? Like 22 pounds in like a month? That's not healthy. Like that. That's abusive. Good. That's fucked up.
That is pretty fucked up.
So yeah, she definitely has her issues. And like I said, she's the one who trained Michiru. So in that sense, I kind of understand why Michiru's professional persona is so mean. From what we hear from Zach, she does have a nicer, softer, actual person underneath. And she is only 17. So I'm willing to forgive Michiru a little bit.
Yeah, it's true. I guess she's not as bad as I initially made her out to be.
You're free to have your own opinion of her. It's just, that's my analysis. That's my take on Michiru.
I was just annoyed by it, and it kind of turned me off to me thinking deeper of her character. It's weird how the majority of Tsukasa's co-workers root for this relationship between Isla and him.
Yeah.
Your partner, you obviously wanted to talk to her, and that's all he says originally, that he just wants to talk to her, and then they're all like, this is how you hit on her.
Isla has been there her entire life. She's been there for 9 years. Yes. I feel like they all knew Isla, and they all recognized that she was getting sad, and she doesn't want to be alone. She said she didn't want to be alone in like the last couple of episodes. And when she was with Tsukasa, she got happier. So in that sense, I understand why they just wanted something nice for their longtime coworker. And also Tsukasa liked her. So I don't feel like they were pushing them together. I do sort of understand why they approved of the relationship, even with all the pain that it would cause, because they did just want her to have a happy, last few months of life.
Right. They also, not all of them knew that she only had a few months left at that time.
That's true. Michiru didn't know,
Yeah.
which would tell me that most of them probably didn't know.
I think the only one who knew was Kazuki.
Kazuki.
Right. At least that's the impression I got.
Right. And the president may also have known. Yamanobe, I think was his name.
Oh yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if he knew. Not that he'd be able to tell us that he knew, because he never really got a chance to say or do anything.
No, he was a bit character.
I'm kind of wondering. I guess, I mean, he's a character that's just kind of there. He's not supposed to have any balls really to speak up for himself. But I mean, if I was that chief of that section and freaking Kazuki, I don't care if she's a veteran in the business, you're fucking talking over me, girl.
Yeah, she was pretty much running the place. I mean, he was too pathetic to do anything. He was bullied by Kazuki.
He got bullied, and then he asked for tea
and got yelled at by his daughter.
And his daughter. And
he just gets yelled at by everybody.
He's a sad man.
He is. Poor Yamanobe. I would say poor, but I don't know. I think the dude should just stand up for himself. But
yeah, I don't really want to feel bad for a guy that looks like he has no spine.
Spineless is definitely a good word to describe Yamanobe.
Yeah. Now, a thing that I want to mention between Tsukasa and Ayla.
Go for it.
Is that, I guess, Tsukasa, do you approve of what Tsukasa essentially did with Ayla as far as like making beautiful memories with her, quote unquote? Like he's aware that she's going to die, and he invests all this time and stuff to build this relationship with her, despite what he's going to feel when it happens. Could that have been done in a better way? Or was it a good thing that he actually had that relationship, even though it was only for a month?
Since he was the one who stood to hurt the most from it, I feel like it was his decision.
Right.
And he was technically an adult.
Yeah.
I don't think he was trying to exploit Ayla or anything. I don't even remember them kissing, let alone having sex.
They kissed before she died. That's about it.
That's right.
I mean, I have to give him props for doing that, because that's a big chunk of yourself to essentially give someone, to actually care for someone so much and build a relationship, even though they're not going to be there that much longer. I feel like you're sacrificing quite a bit of yourself mentally and emotionally.
I mean,
for sure.
This isn't the only thing I've ever seen that deals with that. I mean,
no, yeah, of course.
There was a movie I saw when I was younger where someone gets married to someone with a terminal disease.
This person doesn't have much time left. I genuinely care about what they're going through. I'm going to give them the best last moments of their life.
Yeah.
I feel like it's one of those kinds of feelings. And that's, I mean, you got some balls if you're doing that, because a lot of people would be like, nope, not touching it. Not touching this. Like this will hurt way too much, and like back away. I feel like more people are going to leave than they are to stay in that kind of situation, especially if it's relatively new. But I kind of liked how this was a situation where it was someone who wanted to stay.
And I feel like a lot of it was kind of emotionally driven. Even though he knew she was going to go, I'm not sure Tsukasa was totally prepared.
Oh, absolutely not.
For the moment of her actually going.
No, he dreaded that moment, that entire last day.
Even in the Ferris wheel, when it almost seemed like she was pushing him to retrieve her, as they say. And he was like, can I rethink this?
Yeah. I've seen some people say that it's kind of like, oh, it's so sad because it's done with rings, so it's like Mary's.
It's almost like they're getting married.
Yeah. And then I've heard other people joke and say, you might as well be dead after you're married. No.
Oh, very good, Rob.
Depending on how you want to take that, but I'm gonna.
Yeah, depending on who you ask. Married people or unmarried people.
Yes. It's sad, and they do that on purpose, and that's the point.
I will admit to listeners, any anime that has made me tear up, my eyes well up, and if it's really bad, a couple of tears might just escape from my eyes and just sort of roll down my cheeks. one or two.
Yeah.
With this show, I was ugly crying. My face was all scrunched up and aching, and I was crying streams of tears.
It did its fucking job.
I will admit that much. It did the fucking job, which is being a manipulative piece of shit and playing that fucking song.
Yeah.
Again and again.
Again and again and again and again.
What a bullshit fucking song. Even when it played its instrumental version in the background of some scenes, I would get goosebumps. And I was like, why are you doing this to me?
Yeah. It's almost like it brainwashes you to cry whenever that song happens.
Yeah, by association, just because the very first time it ever plays is when the little girl is crying in the first episode.
Yeah, that's hurtful. That's
yes. That was this show is out to hurt you.
Yeah.
How did you feel about things like that one Giftia who got stolen and then went berserk and almost killed the child?
I want to say the child was Sato, I think, and the Giftia was Marcia. Okay. I want to say
Marcia. That was her name.
Yeah. Yeah, Marcia.
How did that one make you feel?
Oh man, not happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I felt. See, that was rough because it tells you the story of what Sato's going through, and Marcia being there, a part of the family. She's essentially the nanny, right? Things just get good again. Like they just get good and even if she wasn't taken, like she was going to get retrieved like the next day. Like it's still that's still fucking rough for this kid. But the fact that she gets kidnapped 10,000 times worse and then almost kills him. And then the fact that he can't even see her anymore to like make peace with himself. Awful. The last thing that kid's going to freaking remember is getting choked out by the person that claimed to love him.
Yeah. And that, well,
God
yeah.
awful.
And then he was, and then when Tsukasa went to see him, he was like, I didn't get to say goodbye. Bring Marcia back. Where is she?
And Kasia's like
even after what happened.
Yeah. Even after what happened. Like, it just shows, like, despite all his anger towards Marcia, still loved her.
Yeah.
And he never said goodbye properly. And that kid's going to freaking live with that shit. And that's awful. That is god-awful.
Which Michiru also had to live with.
Right. Which she did. Okay. I feel bad for talking shit about Michiru now. She went through a lot of shit. Yeah. God, I'm awful. I'm a piece of shit, not Michiru. No, I'm sorry, okay. Michiru. I'm sorry. Play the song. Play again and again. Play it. No,
fly away on invisible wings together.
Okay. No. Yeah. So. Yeah. That hit me pretty hard.
And I know Tsukasa, even despite all his apparent strength, was also sort of in denial. Like with
tried to talk her out of it.
It tried to talk her out of it. He was in denial about Isla too, like as we saw with the whole Olivia Andy's situation. He was like, do you think memories can survive even after being erased? Yeah. And everyone was like, no. And in my opinion, what's your opinion on that, by the way? Here's my question to you.
Sure.
Do you think that there's any chance that memories could come back in the same body?
As much as I want to be all fantastical and say yes, I'm going to say no.
Same.
I'm going to say no because Giftias, at the end of the day, are an android and their synthetic soul is a fucking program.
If you replace somebody's brain, it's not that person anymore. It's a different person.
It's not going to work. It wouldn't. It's not that they have amnesia and it could come back. It's the fact that it's gone. And something new was put in its place.
Exactly.
They would have to have designed something that was almost exactly the same as before. And even that would change because it's kind of like, okay, say you clone yourself, right? But it's going to start as a baby or with like very little knowledge. Depending on how it's raised, it's going to be different no matter what.
Exactly. I think that was just Tsukasa trying to be in denial about losing Isla.
Absolutely. And it's really sad to think about. But yeah, I mean, when Isla went, she's gone. She's gone. If her body's being used again, it's not her. It's someone else. But tell me how you thought about the whole Marcia thing.
Yeah, it actually helped me sort of understand. I don't know if the Giftia tend to be so willing to allow themselves to be terminated because they're programmed that way, or if because they're afraid of being Marcia, because that is a fate worse than death, to turn on and attack the people around you. If you were a Giftia, how would you feel about it? Terminated, retrieved.
Yeah. It's strange because it's asking essentially, am I comfortable with death? If it predicted, like if it's someone tells me like, okay, you have 9 years, I think I would accept it because one of my actual fears is hurting the people I love in some extent or another. I fear that more than my own death. So I think I'd be okay with it, to be honest. And in this case, it's brought to an extreme because, hey, if it doesn't happen, I'm going to hurt the people I love. And that would suck. So I don't want to sound like a badass and be like, I'm not afraid of dying, but there are other things that I'm more afraid of than dying.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think I think I'd actually be okay with it. But I know there are those out there that are terrified of death, and they might actually choose to be like, no, I'd rather run away and be a freaking wanderer instead of dealing with this shit. But are you even yourself if you're a wanderer? Is the Giftia even them anymore?
No, I don't think so. That's basically being a zombie.
Right. So, I mean, like, why would you want that? It's kind of like, do you want to turn? No, you don't want to turn. In a zombie apocalypse, for the most part, most people don't want to turn. They don't want to become a monster.
Yeah, the cliche in zombie apocalypse fiction is, if it looks like I'm going to turn, kill me first.
Right. Exactly. It's almost like one of those, remember me as I was. You know?
Yeah.
Even though 9 years is a shitty deal.
That hurt for me when Isla was like, I want you to remember that I was here.
Yeah. Oof. I got upset when she brought up, like, you'll probably have another girlfriend. I was like, oh man, it's true, but why do you have to say that? Yeah.
So did he. And then she was like, sorry, that was cruel of me. And I'm like, yeah, it was.
Yeah. Come on, man. I mean, you don't have to state like obvious. I mean, it'll happen probably, but now's not the time.
But on the other hand, she was the one who was about to die. So I can understand that that's something that would probably run through your head.
She's also trying to make peace with it too at the same time, because it's one of those things like you'd want the people you care about to be happy. You know,
she would want him to carry on.
Yes. Okay, so yes, here we are at the end discussion of this ending. Theory has it that it is Isla, but there's no guarantee that it is.
No, it's not Isla. It's her. I think that the implication
Isla's body
is that it's her body. I think that's the implication. I think that's why they showed us the hand.
Right.
Because that's what we're supposed to draw from it.
Right. You see the footstep come in and then the hand soon after.
And I don't like that.
I don't like that either. Okay, now let's say if it is Isla's shell. Let's say it is Isla's shell. He was gone for 9 months doing some training thing. I imagine part of it was acceptance.
Yeah.
There has to be some kind of therapy involved, right?
Just existing. Whether there was actual like a program in place for it, any time off taken after that would just on a personal level at least be him trying to cope with what happened, because it fucked him up, as we saw.
Now, say that this 9-month program, this is where the show is more than ass backwards than ever before. Say that 9-month program is to kind of have him accept that this is what happens in this world, right? This is what this is. This is what this job is, etc. Don't you think that should have taken place before he actually started working there? And if it did, he wouldn't even had a relationship with Isla, because she would have been gone by the time he started working. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that would have avoided the entire series, essentially.
Yeah. Well, what can I say? Terminal Services is a really dysfunctional organization. And in fact, I'm going to say that I think Giftia must be new, because I feel like Terminal Services must be new and still figuring itself out.
It has to be.
Like an old organization that has all its shit together. It seems like people are still not sure what to make of this whole Giftia phenomenon. I don't think it's ever stated how long they've been around, is it?
No, and that kind of throws me off, because Tsukasa, as much as I know, he doesn't seem to know much, if anything, about Giftia before he starts working.
Exactly. I feel like it would have been common knowledge if they were around for a long time.
Right.
Like, I feel like it must be the Giftia, and logically, therefore, the Terminal Services must be a new kind of thing in society.
But the thing is that they have to at least be a decade old. They have to be.
Yeah, you're right.
For terminal service to exist, because they're collecting, 9 years have to have gone by. And we know of other Giftia who have not survived, but been repurposed after their 9-year span.
That's true.
Has to have been at least 10.
And we know that at least 3 years ago they were being retrieved, because that's when Michiru's father.
Yes, that's right. So it has to be at least 12
years.
Or 13. Yeah, 12 years. At least
12
years.
or 13 years. Yep.
Ooh, that's interesting. I wonder. So 12 years, and he's 18. So come on, man. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, in my opinion, this just goes back to
how the world building.
Yeah, the world building is not really there. Not good.
Or is it? Not that this is benefit of the doubt, but are they not in every region? Are they not all over the place? Does he live somewhere else where there isn't any?
That's a possibility.
Like, could he have grown up in like a quieter town, where like not a city?
Of course,
kind of thing.
The meta reasoning is that he doesn't know because we don't know, and so he's an audience surrogate to have it explained to him.
Right.
And therefore explained to us.
Exposition, etc.
But yeah, in universe, I guess that's a possibility. That's another thing that I really feel like should have been dealt with within the show rather than left to us to justify for it. But the show is what it is. Right.
So back to the ending bit. Theory is that it is Isla's body. And if it is Isla's body, how fucking heartless is that? Do you think?
It's extremely disrespectful, in my opinion. Almost cruel to put another personality in the same body and then reassign it to that person. I can't imagine that if anybody in that office had any say, they would have approved of that, unless they're assholes or just completely don't understand how human feelings work.
Right.
That's wrong. If it's not Isla, then we don't have anything to talk about, because that's fine.
Right.
So we might as well treat it as though it is, because that's what gives us actually something to continue talking about in our podcast that is entirely talking.
And I believe that's the purpose why it's so open-ended like that, like so people can have this discussion whether or not it is or isn't. And the fact that it is, people lean towards it being her shell. But it's like, but if you believe that it is, then holy fuck, this place sucks.
Yeah, that's super fucked up.
It's super fucked up. And it's like, okay, he shakes his hand. It's like, nice to meet you, or whatever that is at the end. He does shake her hand, right? Because she extends it.
Yes, they shake hands. That's
right.
The ending shot is a close-up of their hands joining.
So I'm wondering, is 9 months a long enough period of time for you to not only, for lack of a better way of saying, get over the relationship you were just in, essentially with not only romantically, but with the partner that you had while you worked there in the beginning, and then be okay continuing if you were to see this face again? Like, is that enough time to be desensitized to it?
To the first aspect, whether it's enough time to move on. I do know what you mean. Move on. I would say, depending on the person, yes. But as for whether it would be cool to see them again and not have that be extremely unhealthy for you, I would say that for the vast majority of people, no, not at all. That would be fucking awful.
I don't think so. So he's smiling at that point because he's sad.
Oh yeah, that is what they told us throughout the entire series.
Yeah, he smiles because he might be sad.
Oh yeah. I don't want that to be the case.
That's still a really harsh punishment for something that he shouldn't be punished for.
unless the series is leaning toward the possibility, which in my opinion is not a possibility, the train of thought explored earlier, which is, can memories return? So if they want us to believe that Isla could come back if it's her body, then I guess maybe they would consider it a happy ending for it to be the same body.
It's
a complex issue.
I'm definitely wondering if it is something where they want to tease that, because it's like, hey, fans who enjoy this show and Isla and all that stuff, it is Isla, but they spent so much in the show saying that like memories will not return.
Yes. So but then at the same time, he was like thinking maybe memories can return, although there was never any evidence of it. It just seemed like him in denial.
Right. And Isla does whisper that thing that he eventually whispers, which is like, I hope you are reunited with the one you love.
Which is also the name of the last episode.
Yes.
So that may have been what they were trying to tease.
Right. Whether or not that would actually happen, I don't think it would.
I don't think it would realistically, but then
again,
but in this show, maybe that is what they were trying to hint at.
What do you think of the series length being 13 episodes? Do you think it was paced okay enough? Do you think it should have had a few more episodes, or if it was too long or too short? Like, what do you feel about its pacing?
I definitely didn't think it was too long.
This show probably would have, personally, I would have given it a higher score than I already did if there was more explanation in the right way of the universe itself that this takes place in. Right. So
yeah, I agree. I feel like it could have benefited from more time if that time were utilized well. It definitely could have benefited a lot more.
Right. That's all I really have notes of as of right now. Do you have any final thoughts before we give it a rating?
I think we've talked about some of the most interesting points already.
I believe so as well. So, Sam, being as you just finished watching the show really moments ago, what kind of rating do you feel this deserves from you?
I'm going to say, with the problems I had with the setting and with some of the weaker characters, which is to say most of the characters, really, there were only a few characters that I felt were very strong. Having those issues, I would give it a 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10. Okay. That makes sense to me. I'm going to score it a little higher, and I am going to give it 7 out of 10.
Okay.
Because I like the super sappy, hyper-focused emotional stuff. So that's enough for me to give it a 7. Where my rating goes down is definitely because of the flaws with the universe and how side characters were just kind of there for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I feel about the show.
Yeah. So I think between this and Konosuba, we see how you and I differently value tears and laughter.
Yes, we definitely do.
I value laughter more highly. and I think you like to feel sadness. Yeah, the feels. I found it a little bit manipulative, but I found it skillfully manipulative, which I can admire.
Right. Just the fact that it was able to actually.
Yeah. Because between the two, I feel like a lot of the time we agree on a lot of the same points. We just feel differently on them.
Yeah, that's true. Feeling my heart ripped out is a great feeling for me.
Even though I gave this show a 6 out of 10, I will also like to clarify that I don't think this is a bad show. I also quite enjoyed this show. And I would say that if you have never cried at an anime and you would like to, you should watch this show. Although I will also say that if you didn't watch this show, why are you listening to this podcast?
Especially at this point in the podcast.
When we've spoiled absolutely everything.
Thanks for sticking in there. Sorry we ruined the show for you.
So yeah, I did like this show.
I think this was a good talk of the show. We definitely had some similar and different opinions over things. However, like usual, we definitely do have an understanding of how this shit works.
We do.
Yep. So I do want to apologize to you, Sam, for throwing you under the feels train.
It's okay. At least now, if I do want to cry, I can just listen to that song again and again.
Right. It's okay to cry.
And I can fly on invisible wings because we are changing.
We are. So what's next on our list of things to talk about?
Well, I have had some recommendations for an anime that I believe you are also sort of interested in.
Oh, yes.
Called Yona of the Dawn.
I am very excited to see this anime, mostly because most people described it to me as Fire Emblem, which I'm a huge fan of. I'm looking forward to seeing this, and neither of us have seen this before.
No, this will be the first show that we've watched that neither of us have seen before the podcast.
Oh, good.
So that should be interesting for us.
I cannot wait.
I'm excited.
Me too. Say we close this off. This was a good time.
Absolutely.
Thanks for listening.
And next time we will watch Kuro Inu.
Bye.
What's wrong? What did I say?
Baka Talk.
Hold on, let me play again and again.
No, don't fucking play that. I'll kill you.